Hello class, good evening. So now we will discuss our I will discuss our next topic. So Article 1480. So rules on preservation of injury to or benefit from the thing sold before or after the perfection. So here in Article 1480, so we will discuss anong mangyayari doon sa what if yung subject matter natin is nagkaroon ng injury or partial loss or complete loss before and after the perfection of the contract of sale. So, uh, sabi dito, rule number 1. So, duty of seller to preserve the thing after the perfection but after delivery. So, gaya dun sabi ng obligations in contract natin. So, the seller is obliged to take care of the thing with the diligence of a father of a family, unless the law or stipulation of the parties requires another standard of care. So, syempre naman, so, dapat si seller, this is his obligation, number 1 obligation, unang-una to take care of the subject matter. So, take note class, here, ang nangyari dito, there is a perfected contract of sale, but before the delivery. So, dapat kapag hindi sinabi sa kontrata, dapat si seller will exercise diligence of a good father of a family. Unless lang kung yung law or stipulation sinabi ng batas or di kaya sinabi sa kontrata nyo or stipulation of both parties na dapat merong another standard of care. So, that is Article 1163. So, rule number 2. Rights of the buyer to the fruits. So, kailan magkakaroon ng rights yung buyer to the fruits? As a general rule, the buyer has a right to the fruits of the thing from the time of perfection of the contract. So, that is our general rule class ha. Ibig sabihin, kapag nagkaroon na ng perfected contract of sale, si buyer na ang may-ari ng fruits of the subject matter. So, let's say for example, si seller nagbenta ng horse kay buyer and then si buyer inaccept niya yung price at saka yung subject matter. But before the delivery on the part of the seller, yung horse ngayon or yung kabayo nanganak. So, the fruits of the horse or yung anak ng kabayo is kay buyer na because that is our general rule. But there is an exemption. So, let's discuss it later. So, in rule number 3, so here in rule number 3, let's discuss Article 1493 and 1494. So, sabi dito, loss or injury to the thing. Number 1. So, loss before perfection. So, anong mangyayari ngayon? Who shall bear the loss? So, before the contract, before the perfection of the contract of sale. So, number 1, complete loss. So, loss before perfection. Kapag yung subject matter is na loss bago ma-perfected yung contract of sale, ngayon, complete loss yung nangyari. The sale is void. It's because the sale is void. It is because wala nang absence of the object, di ba? Kapag yung isang kontrata is a contract is perfected by consent, object, and cause. So, kapag wala dun sa tatlo yung isang kontrata, ibig sabihin yung contract is void kaagad yon. So, here, ang nangyari dito, loss before the perfection of the contract of sale, complete loss yung nangyari, the sale is void. Number 2, how about partial loss? The buyer may choose. So, kapag partial loss lang, hindi total complete loss yung nangyari dun sa subject matter. So, si buyer pipili either withdrawal of contract. So, huwag nang ituloy yung kontrata. Next is demand the remaining part in paying its proportionate price. So, according to Article 1493 and 1494, so, what if partial loss ang nangyari? Let's say, for example, si seller nagbenta ng boat. or bangka. Ngayon, si buyer tinanggap naman. So, but before the perfection and before the delivery, yung bangka is weighed by the storm. So, nabali or di kaya yung main body niya is hindi pa nasira. Ngayon, si buyer pwedeng maghindi na lang or withdrawal of the contract, huwag na lang ituloy yung kontrata. Or di kaya pwedeng i-demand niya yung natira and then, syempre, babayaran niya yung proportionate price only but not, hindi niya babayaran yung buong object or hindi niya babayaran yung buong presyo ng subject matter or the object. Next is, how about loss after perfection of the contract? So, here, first view tayo. So, the buyer bears the loss and he must pay the price. So, ibig sabihin class, here, mayroon ng perfected contract of sale. Diba? Yung example natin a while ago, kapag perfected na yung contract of sale, si buyer is sa kanya mapupunta yung fruits. Diba? Ngayon, ang nangyari dito, loss. So, syempre, kapag na-perfected na yung contract of sale, the buyer shall bear the loss and he must pay the price. Exemptions. So, general rule natin class, the buyer shall bear the loss and we must pay the price after the perfection of the contract of sale. Pero may exemptions doon. Number 1, when the seller delay. So, let's say for example, yung bangka. So, na-perfect yung contract of sale January 1. Ngayon, i-deliver February 1. And then ngayon, dumating na lang yung February 1, wala pang i-deliver si seller. So, nagkaroon na siya ngayon ng delay. And then, February 2, tinamaan ngayon ng kidlat o di kaya binagyo yung bangka. So, the seller, nag-incur yung seller ng delay. So, ibig sabihin, the buyer shall not bear the loss and he is not obliged to pay the price of the object. Number 2, when the law provides that the seller shall liable even in case of fortuitous event. So, syempre, general rule, the buyer must pay the price, right? And he must bear the loss. But number 2 exemptions natin, kapag sinabi sa batas na hindi kasalanan ni buyer and si buyer hindi magbabayad ng price on the subject matter, so yun class, so the buyer shall not bear the loss kapag sinabi sa batas talaga. Take note class ha, walang presumption sa batas. Dapat kung ano lang yung naka-state sa batas, yun lang. Take note ha, there is no presumption on the interpretation of law. Next, number 3, when the party stipulated that the seller shall be liable in case of fortuitous event. So, take note class. So, let's say for example, dun sa example natin, yung bangka. Ngayon, before the delivery, nasira yung bangka, inanod, or di kaya tinamaan ng kidlat. Pero, so, general rule, di ba, si buyer ang mag-bear ng loss kasi nga there is a perfected contract of sale. But, napag-usapan nyo na kung masira man ito due to fortuitous event, sabi ni buyer, hindi ako magiging liable, hindi ko babayaran. So, it is based on the stipulation. Number 4, when the nature of the seller's obligation requires assumption of risk. So, here class, ang perfect example dito is yung mga perishable goods. Let's say for example, yung mga perishable goods natin, gulay, lahat ng foods which is hindi siya pwedeng ma-delay, di ba? Ngayon na-delay, so the buyer shall not bear the loss but the seller on the part of the seller. Kasi nga there is assumption of risk. So just like perishable goods, manok, karne, gulay, or kahit ano which is perishable goods. So dapat hindi siya ma-delay. Next, second view. Yun yung first view natin class. But on the second view, the seller bears the risk of loss and the buyer is not obliged to pay the price. So, anong ibig sabihin? If there is an agreement to that effect, so si seller ang magbibigay ng loss kapag meron silang agreement between the parties. May contract or may stipulation sa contract si seller and the buyer. Number 2, if the ownership retained by the seller merely to secure the performance of the buyer of his obligation under the contract. So, ito class, sa number 2 naman, di ba, general rule natin, the buyer shall bear the loss kapag meron ng perfected contract of sale. But sa number 2 kasi, ito yung nangyayari. Hindi muna ipinapasa yung ownership doon sa buyer kapag hindi ma-fully paid. So, bagay na bagay ito class doon sa mga installment sales. So, di ba sa installment sales, just like for example, kotse, nagbenta si seller ng kotse kay buyer, pero hindi matatransfer yung ownership hanggat hindi na fully paid ni buyer yung kotse. So, kapag yung kotse is nasira, so the seller shall bear the loss and the buyer is not obliged to pay the price. But, a little bit of knowledge class, paano sa mga motor? Yung mga motor kasi is perfected contract of sale yun. Yung buyer ang may magbibear ng loss. Bakit? Kapag bibili ka kasi ng motor, hindi ba ibinibigay yung pangalan doon sa ORCR is pangalan na nung buyer, hindi ng kumpanya. Let's say for example, Desmark o di kaya Honda Sox Sargent. Kapag bumili ka ng motor doon sa Honda Sox Sargent or umutang ka, magbabayad ka ng down payment 5,000. So, yung motor is nakapangalan na doon sa buyer, hindi na doon sa Honda Sox Sargent. So, anong ginagawa para magkaroon ng specific performance yung buyer? Doon sa likod ng ORCR, tinatatakan ng chattel mortgage. So, yun na yung class. Number 3, when the actual delivery has been delayed through the fault of the buyer. So, dito class, sa second view natin, so anong mas prefer ng batas? Either the first view or the second view. So, ang sinusunod ngayon ng batas natin or sa judicial natin is the weight of authority is on the second view. It is because consistent with the principle of res perit domino. So, take note class. So, general rule, di ba? Si buyer ang mag-take ng risk. But, ang ginagawang practice ngayon is si seller yung nagbibear ng loss because of these 3. So, if the agreement to that effect, if the ownership is retained by the seller to secure the performance by the buyer of his obligation under the contract, and then number 3, actual delivery has been delayed through the fault of the buyer. So, it's because class, ito yung principle ng batas, res perit domino, meaning the loss of property falls upon the owner. So, yung property, di ba, ang may owner niyan is the seller. So, kaya yung prefer ng batas or the authority is the second view, not the first view. So, thank you. That's all class.